Hey, everybody, welcome to another Bourbon and Blockchain happy hour. Tonight we have myself, Myron Gaines, Mr. Maverick, and Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Tonight we're going to be talking about some current events, and we're going to be talking about some news articles and things that have happened over the last couple days that might be interesting to you guys. So buckle in and enjoy yourself and just listen to all the information that's coming across our desk over the last couple days. So to start off, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start sharing some news articles. Let me go ahead and pull up my screen here so that we can get that part kicked off. So the first news article that we're going to talk about tonight is an article from CoinDesk, and this article talks about the Russian government introduces crypto bill to parliament over central bank objection. Pretty much, it looks like the Ministry of Finance is pushing forward with cryptocurrency regulations in Russia. We've looked at this article ourselves, and we'd like to go ahead and start to discuss it. So first up on the block tonight is Mr. Myron Gaines. How you doing, Mr. Myron Gaines?
Doing good. So I think we also have one that's kind of related to this. I'll combine them together because there's also news I think on India, and I think those are kind of they're talking about the same thing. So both of these government, I think I saw that they're not saying that these cryptos can be used as legal tender, but more of an investment. I think the Indian government has really strict crypto policies. You're taxed very high on them also. And I heard something about India crypto, how they handle it. I don't know if it's completely true, but you cannot have basically you'll get taxed on the profits, but if you lose money, that doesn't mean anything. So if you made a bunch of money on sheep, then like $1 million and you lost that, you're still getting taxed on the $1 million, which is absolutely horrible what they're doing. But I don't know if that's completely true. That's something I heard. But again, it's centralized governments trying to control crypto, and especially with what's going on right now with Russia and the Ukraine, and what's happening with Canada trying to ban the bank accounts or even crypto wallets. I think it just plays more into that. Crypto is an asset that they desperately want to take control of, and I feel like they're flooding it a lot to buying at cheaper prices. I was talking to Mr. Maverick today. I feel like for stocks, they're going to maybe have a blow off top, get retail to buy back in, and really tank the price. So I'm kind of bullish, I guess, on stocks in the short term, but crypto, I think it's the opposite direction. They're gonna really push it down, get all these people to sell the retails, shake them out, then they're gonna bring it back up. And in terms of article, I just think they're just gonna keep trying to do I guess more uh, regulations, and but I think all this is kind of noise in terms of long term for crypto.
Yeah, that's a good opinion. Smoky Mountain, what do you have to say about these articles?
So it looks like Russia is trying to rush this through pretty quickly. I guess the news today was there were two Ukrainian territories that Russia recognized as independent sovereign nations or something like that. Whatever the case is, the U.S. and Russia are in some dispute where tensions are rising, and so Russia knows that the U.S. is going to apply sanctions to them. So I think Russia wants an easy, convenient way to get exposure to Bitcoin with the ruble, because this will allow Russia to avoid U.S. sanctions, which usually these sanctions, will forbid countries from doing business with Russia. Well, if Russia has a cryptocurrency handy, they can skirt the sanctions and still do business with other countries that through either Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. So I think that's their motivation to do it. And we also saw an article where it looks like India is creating a digital rupee as well. So I also have a little bit of a tinfoil hat take, not to get too off track, but all these headlines we're seeing, Russia's getting the ruble. We talked in the last episode or a couple episodes ago that the USA is going digital dollar. We see India, who is always flooding Bitcoin, might be going to a digital rupee, or I think they did announce they were going to a digital rupee. Then we saw a large private company, BlackRock, saying they're going to get into crypto. And yet with all these headlines, we're seeing the price tank. So the tinfoil hat me is saying that all these large nations and corporations might be taking the price right now. That might be why we're in this kind of crypto winter, is because all these countries and companies are getting in at a cheap price. And so that's kind of my take on this Russia thing right now.
Yeah, it's funny how you say, Smokey, crypto winter. It's something everybody's speculating on. And, you know, I reading through these articles, it seems like every other day there's something new, right? The governments are trying to wrap their heads around it. They're trying to navigate their way in the dark to come up with something that makes sense and gain some kind of control over it. So, look, I know we say that, hey, all news is good news for crypto. And we talk about mainstream adoption, you know, how that's kind of the end goal. And, you know, the more people that are in this space, the more successful it'll be, and the more serious it'll be taken. And so there's some necessity there, right, to regulate so that it can fit into real life, you know, it can be a little bit more credible. So, you know, I see these as being positives, but at the same moment, I'm a little confused because everybody has a different take. They have a different perspective. They're all navigating through different routes, which just tells me they're traveling down a road without a map at this moment, right? I think as time goes on, we're going to see things become a little bit more clear. You know, there's going to be some countries that establish good precedents and see success, and I hope to see others kind of migrate and follow. But at the end of the day, they're all looking for their piece of the pie and how to leverage it. So, you know, good news, yes, love to see it in the news. I still, I'm looking forward to a lot more clarity over the next, I'm guessing it's going to be 5 to 10 years, honestly, before we really start landing on some hardcore precedents.
Yeah, you know, I don't have anything, you know, spectacular to add to what you guys are saying. I think we're all kind of on the same page when we're saying that it looks like, and I guess this is another way to look at it. It looks like these governments are starting to act like large companies. And when I say that is when you have large companies that are involved in the stock market, they make specific type of moves to try to gain an advantage. And I feel like certain countries like China and India have done this for a long time. And now you have Russia getting involved. And ultimately, what I see here is a move to go ahead and find a way to make more money on their purchase for a digital asset that they see as being valuable. Now, I could be wrong, but what it looks like to me by doing what they're trying to do is what they're trying to do is A, find a way that they can buy this at a lower price with their own currency, and B, avoid sanctions from US or, you know, the UN or anything like that. So to me, they're just positioning themselves in a position where they can get an advantage like everybody else has been trying to do. It just, when you see it on a world stage like this, it's kind of surprising to see, and it's almost deplorable. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of what it looks like to me personally.
I agree. You agreed. We talk about it all the time, right?
Yeah.
It exists not only in individuals, but in governments and any body. So, I mean, yeah, I agree. Everybody's trying to navigate to gain some piece of that pie.
Yep. Does anybody else have anything to say about this? Awesome. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one. So for the next topic that we picked for tonight, I think this is pretty cool. Crypto enthusiasts are forming a DAO to buy the Denver Broncos, an NFL team. If the sale goes through, the Broncos would join the Green Bay Packers as one of the only 32 teams in the NFL, or I'm sorry, only 2 teams that are in the NFL that are owned by cooperatives. So we started with Myron on the last one. So Smokey, go ahead. You are up.
So this actually has a lot of utility if you really think about one of the big scandals in the NFL the last few years was the St. Louis Rams moving from St. Louis to LA. So the Rams had been in St. Louis since 1996. The owner Kroenke, or whatever his name is, something like that, pressured the local government to raise the taxes, and they ended up spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a new stadium just for the Rams. So the taxpayers spent some hundred millions of dollars to build a new stadium for the Rams. They hadn't even finished off paying the stadium yet. I think they're still paying it now. And the Rams get up and move to LA. So I think a community-owned team is something that could get a lot of momentum for NFL fans, especially if you're in one of those cities that has had a team move on you. I know it happened to the Browns. They eventually got their team back. The Houston Oilers, they lost the team for a while, and then they got the Texans back. But when you see these owners are always leveraging their power to use tax money to build new stadiums, and that hasn't stopped. That's still going on. So these owners will extract taxpayer money, but they can just leave anytime they want. So I think a DAO is the perfect system for the NFL. Unfortunately, they do call the NFL the no fun league for a reason. So, I could see there being pushback on this, but I do think it is the right direction to go.
Mr. Maverick, what do you think?
Yeah, I want to know where you invest in this, because who doesn't want to be considered a part owner of an NFL team, right? I mean, that's exciting in general. I read through this article, and there were some things that kind of stood out to me, right? How they believe, or at least some speculate, that this isn't going to be possible because of a precedent that was set in 1980 because of the Green Bay Packers, right? They essentially said that nothing like that could ever exist again, and it needed to be held by a single person that had at least 30% equity in the team, and there could only be so many owners. There it is, 32 owners in one team. So, I mean, obviously there's going to be some pushback, right? Because this doesn't benefit an individual, or I could just see this as kind of breaking the status quo. But, I will say that with organizations promoting so heavily in the NFL space right now, crypto.com and Coinbase and all that, that I believe that there's a chance that something like this could work, and that we could see something like this come to fruition. And that, to me, that's exciting.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I don't know if this will happen or not. I don't think that that's the point of this. I mean, this is kind of like, it's saying this is something that could happen in the future. And I don't even look at it like that. I look at it as, I've been hearing over the past several months or a year about all the different things that crypto will be able to do in the future. Same thing with NFTs, right? And I don't think anybody said you could have a DAO that owns an NFL football team. And I think what this does for me personally, yeah, this is a good story and it does make sense. And could it possibly happen? That's a lot of conjecture, right? But what it does is show me that there are things that could happen in crypto that we haven't even thought of yet. And it's going to continue to do that. People are going to continue to think of different ways to utilize this asset class in a unique, in special way that nobody's ever done before. Who knows? What if they divide the team up? What if somebody bought the team for whatever, however $1 billion it is for this team, $4 billion, and divided it up into 10,000 NFTs and sold it? Who says that you can't do that, right? So, I mean, I think that it's pretty crazy that we're talking about this stuff, but I think that's the point of this article as well, is to kind of open your eyes to the possibilities that what could happen in the future with crypto. So that's kind of what I take from it. And I think it's a cool idea, but we'll see what happens. I think it would be chaos to have, like 27,000 owners in a DAO talking about what they're going to do with their NFL football team.
I think the concept of DAO is probably familiar to a lot of people in crypto, especially after Ohm got so popular. And this is a concept that I think the normal people just in the mainstream have no understanding. So this definitely is a good exposure. But I am not that hopeful for DAOs, because I think that at the end of the day, the people with the most voting power in the DAO will still make the most decision. And I also believe that even though you call it DAO, a decentralized thing, that I think some of the decisions are not necessarily best to be made for using everyone's opinion. And this is another probably controversial opinion, but I don't think the best form of government is democracy. I think it's republic, which was what US was founded on, because when you get democracy, it becomes majority rule. And I think in some of these DeFi projects that has came to be, I think Store in the beginning, or Power, whatever they may be, what the community chose, I guess, voted on, those projects are not necessarily the best project. It's just whatever, that has the most familiarity to those people. And this whole DAO system I think it sounds good on paper, but I think it's flawed, and I don't. It's just like you said, Draco. I don't see that there's gonna be tens of thousands of people uh, owning a part of the team. I mean, technically, if I buy a share of Apple, I'm part owner of Apple, but that doesn't really mean anything. So, is that it doesn't, I don't have, I can buy a share of AMC, but I don't walk into, the people joke around. You walk into AMC and you say, hey man, this is my company, just come here to check in if it's doing well. I think it's a fantasized idea that it sounds good, but I
Hey,
don't think it's
can you
happening.
imagine trying to choose your draft picks? Oh my gosh, from a DAO.
Like
Yeah, we'll have a vote. Yeah.
draft picks or like jerseys, something simple like that. What jersey should we have? And you would just have chaos.
Yeah, you're
I can
right.
tell you as a Packer fan, if we were a Dow in those early Favre years, we probably would have cut Favre in those first 2 to 3 years with all
Yeah.
those 3 or 4 interception games. So, yeah, I kind of agree with Myron. I don't know if democracy is the best form of government, but it is interesting.
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point before we go on to the next one is, yeah, having like split ownership like that is a good idea. Like it's a good concept. But at the end of the day, the people that you want running a football team and owners of a football team are people that know football. And we all have to admit, we are not experts in the NFL. So I think that, that kind of like skates by those like specific details that need to be involved in companies like this. Just like if we were running an energy company, if we bought into an energy company, we don't want to run it. We just want to invest into it, right? So I think that there are flaws here, but it's something to discuss, right? I think that, people need to realize that, and maybe that transfers over into crypto, right? Like who's running these projects and who are voting in on these things? Are they experts, and should they be even considered to vote on those subjects? So I think it's something that we can bring up and discuss going forward into crypto projects as well.
I think if we can add on to this real quick, I think this does bring up a very unique point, which is a real world assets using the crypto system or DAO, or even like what
Yeah.
you said, Draco. If you own an NFT, you own part of this, and I know there are projects out there that's trying to achieve that's trying to say, hey, we're going to take using this DAO system, or we're going to use the cryptos for our fundraising, but eventually they're going to pivot into only real world assets. But to me, that's, of course, there's going to be a lot of legal issues
Mm-hmm.
that's going to play into that. And I think the management of it's not, it sounds so good, really, but I think it's going to be a mess. And maybe it'll take many years for, many trial and error for people to find that a system that actually works. But it's, it is interesting. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I think it gets the brain moving, right? Cool, definitely accomplished its task with that with us. All right, well, moving on to the next article. This article here is talking a little bit about some of our best friends, such as Spotify, and talks a little bit about YouTube as well. So specifically, this article talks about Spotify is hiring a senior-backed engineer to explore Web3. They're starting to speculate that they could be taking their first steps into crypto. And as you continue to read along this, they also make comments towards the end here that this news also follows that other major tech companies are moving into Web3, such as YouTube. So the last one we started off with, Smokey, Mr. Maverick. Go ahead. The stage is yours.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like this is a trend, right? That all these larger tech organizations are trying to capitalize on. I also think that they have some very smart people working for them, and they can kind of see the writing on the wall and understand that how things are going to start progressing over the next few years. And so, just like any business, in order to stay relevant, they have to prepare. They need to be prepared to make those changes. So, I don't have a whole lot of thoughts behind this. I like Spotify. Um, I know they've been in the news here as of recently with some of the Joe Rogan things, but as a whole, I think it's just more bullish news. And we're going to continue to see a trend, I think, over the next few years along the same lines.
Yeah, I think that you're 100% correct. I think that markets, and specifically with cryptocurrency and all this kind of stuff and asset classes, you're going to see trends. And right now, Web3 is the next trend, and other companies are doing it really well and they're making money on it, and people are noticing, right? So, but again, this goes back to what we talked about before. I see crypto news and crypto stories that are like success stories are happening more often than ever, but the price is going down. It just makes you think, and one of the stories that we talked about a couple week ago about, we talked about how 300 banks are starting to onboard crypto. We talked about the pros and cons of that, but we're in the age of mass adoption right now. It's happening in front of us, but the price is going down. It's just, it's one of those things where it kind of makes you sit back and think, what is actually going on here? I know we're going to talk about it a little bit more. I think there are also things that are going on in the world that have investors a little bit spooked. But I mean, it's just kind of one of them things where it makes you kind of look around and say, who's actually controlling these prices, and is it the retail investors or is it the institutional investors that are behind the driver's seat at this point? So, yeah, I think that leads into this type of information where obviously institutions want to be behind the driver's seat. So it's up to the retail people, the individuals such as us, that are going to kind of decide the future of this asset class as well. If we allow, big tech and all these other companies to amass more crypto than everybody else, they're going to control it just like the stock markets are controlled by large companies.
These articles are actually kind of funny to me because crypto was made to be something that's decentralized. And I don't know if you guys remember, but Facebook had tried to come out with their own coin, I think called Libra, a year or two ago. And of course, they canceled that project. Now they're shifting to Meta. But if it's supposed to be decentralized, and then you have Facebook, which we know spies on you, and has all your information and sells your information, and they say, hey guys, we're going to make a coin. Of course, no one's gonna buy that. And these same thing, I think, from my understanding, I may be wrong, but Web 2 is basically a more centralized version of the web, where the companies gather information about you. They can sell the information. They say they'll use the information, of course, to better serve you by giving you better advertising and things like that. But then they found out, of course, you can sell these information for a lot of money. And Web 3, to my understanding, is more of a decentralized version of that, where a lot of content is your own. So when the centralized companies come out and say, "Oh, guys, we're making Web 3," it's kind of ironic. It's like to me, it's Facebook making their own coin and says, "Hey, guys, this is our decentralized coin for you to use. That you can keep all your privacy and everything." So, and I don't see how they plan to do this. It's kind of funny to me.
Yeah, I agree. It is kind of funny watching these tech oligarchs come out with these central coins. They're all kind of the antithesis of what Web3 is supposed to be about. But what is nice about this is, if you remember in 2019 when Facebook introduced the Libra, there was a ton of pushback from the regulators and all this outrage, and they actually ended up pressuring Facebook into canceling the project. And that's why Facebook never made a coin, was because it was too radical of an idea for a company as large as Facebook to be minting their own cryptocurrency. And now, it's really no big deal. I mean, if we weren't looking for these headlines, we might not even notice that Spotify and YouTube were getting into Web3. So that's one take on it. Another take I had on it was, did Spotify take notice of Gala Music? Gala rolled out their Gala Music plan. They signed Snoop, and they're also saying Maroon 5 and some other big artists are on board. And you wonder if Spotify is getting a little nervous at this play to listen plan that's going to come out, and maybe they're reacting to that, or maybe it's just coincidence. It's hard to tell. Maverick, you got anything to
add? Jacob's pulling up Meta.
No, I will. I will add, if anybody needs an awesome playlist, hit Draco up, okay? I may be his first Spotify playlist subscriber.
You're my first subscriber.
And it was well worth it. So, yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
Absolutely.
It's still Facebook on the ticker.
Oh, is it really? No,
Yeah.
it says Meta here, right?
No, well, this is probably something different.
It's off Trading View. Oh, maybe I
It's,
pulled up the wrong one.
no, just yeah, just do FB on that on Trading View.
So I don't know. I think the best part about all of this is what you guys are saying is it's almost like it's a reality check for us that this is not going to stay the way you want it to stay. I think it's impossible to keep it that way. Institutional investors are aware of what's going on, so they're going to do their best to try to sneak in here. But just keep your eyes open and pay attention to what it is these people are saying, because it isn't what they say it is. And for example, like you brought up with Facebook, I mean, Facebook is literally the opposite of decentralized anything. They want to take all of your information and sell it, and they do not have a good bone in their body, in my opinion. So it just pay attention to what these companies are buying and what they're doing, and just be aware. And maybe Spotify does it and they do it really well. You never know. I don't want to say that they won't, but I just make sure you're aware of what it is that's going on in the space. All right, go ahead.
If we can go off topic just real quick, since Raging Beagle brought up meta chart for Facebook, James the Kramer said to load up on Facebook before the earnings report, and it's one of the biggest drops in blue chip stock ever. I think it's like 40% drop or something insane. And of course, after Facebook dropped so much, then you got Mr. Smoky Mountain, Kevin O'Leary coming in and says, "Oh, I'm buying the dip. This is the bottom. I'm calling the bottom." So it went up a little bit on the day where he came out and said that, and now it's way below. It was not way below, but it's below the price again. So that wasn't the bottom. So sometimes, so I say this to say, like, but he still has a show. Kramer still has a show. And this is where I guess people, I don't know who looks to him for stock advice, but I bet people still do. And it's like, basically, if you play against whatever Kramer says, you're going to make a lot of money. So I think a lot of these news and a lot of these things that we see out there, I think a lot of that stuff is controlled by institutions, is controlled by these hedge funds. And Kramer, there's a video of him saying, "Hey guys, I back in the day when I ran a hedge fund, I manipulated stocks, I gave out false news." So a lot of these things, these news, when you see it, they all have an ulterior motive to them.
And now countries are doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Putin has a short position. He's like, "Oh, guys, yeah, I'm gonna go invade Ukraine." But it's crazy. So you gotta be really careful with what you listen to. I think a lot of the people who do a lot of the TA say that you can just ignore all the news because the chart kind of tells you the story. But
absolutely,
yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah, well, you know what? That brings us to the next one, because talking about the price going up and down. This is a unique article here. Ethereum co-founder welcomes crypto winter to flush out speculation. Says Canadian tyranny bolsters need for decentralization. We've talked about this in the past. I think that this is combining two different stories, but it's kind of a good perspective. And I think we're at Myron, right? Or am I the first one on this one?
You're the first one, I think.
All right, so it hasn't been. This starts off by talking about how the news hasn't been good, and we haven't been there since November highs. What it starts to end up going into is talking about Vitalik, the creator of Ethereum, saying that this is the type of stuff that we need to flush out speculation in the market. But it also hints at, the things that have been going on in Canada, for example, where the government is, in response to the protests, are extreme, saying that cryptocurrencies offer a safeguard for extremism, where they're saying that this is another example of having decentralized currency because anybody can say that. So you could be on either side of that flipped token and receive a negative connotation from that, correct? So whether it's something that you believe in or not, should the government be able to step in and, for example, liquidate funds for a cause or something like that? And part of this article is saying that that's what's important about decentralized finance, is that you remove that possibility. I think that he's a very smart individual, Vitalik is, and what he's doing, he's also trying to maybe try to slow down or manipulate the market himself a little bit by saying, like, hey, it's not as bad as it seems, right? But at the end of the day, he does have some really good points. And I think that it's important to have these decentralized concepts that we're talking about with cryptocurrency, because I think it is something that we want to avoid going forward in the future, where, you know, specific governments and things like that can just choose what side that they're on for any argument, whether it's something that you believe in or not, and make an, you know, an extreme example of that and potentially liquidate funds from bank accounts. So yeah, I think that you know, these are good points. I think it's funny to hear that come from somebody with that much influence, though.
Vitalik is a funny character. There's a video of him way back saying that when he was creating Ethereum, of him saying, "Oh yeah, the Bitcoin transaction is way too expensive. It's like a couple of dollars or $1 to do a transaction." He said it shouldn't be like that. Yeah, it should be hundreds of dollars for you to do a transaction, or even in the thousands. So this is so. But the thing is, you know, he created a system. This was innovative, I think, for the most part for Ethereum. And I think he came into that meeting. He came into that meeting wearing a bear costume. So this
Yeah.
guy is a character, man. But I agree with what he says. You know, there is a point where you need these bear markets, or so-called these pullback or corrections, because we can say, I feel like even now a lot of the companies are still overvalued in terms of, I guess, the traditional way of looking at these companies. And it's what people call the moon, yeah, what people call the moon boys. And everything is just, everyone just keep buying. It's all speculation. And in a bear market, just like the article is saying that, or even Vitalik was saying, is that only the strong and the serious project that have good fundamentals is going to survive. I feel like there's way too much fluff out there, that a lot of these projects out there, it's just for the short term, it's all on hype. It doesn't have any fundamentals. And I think if we get continued bleed of Bitcoin, or just stays in this range, not doing too much, a lot of these projects are gonna trend to zero, and then you'll see, hey, these the ones that survive. Those are the ones that's eventually going to last, just like the good companies that, you know, a lot for the dot-com bubble. A lot of the companies just they don't exist anymore. But the companies that survived, now they're, you know, some of the best companies. You know, I think Amazon survived through that, and different companies like that. And I think the same thing that needs to happen in this space. There's of course, we want to look at this price. We want to say, oh, it's not over, it's undervalued. But there's a lot of projects, a lot of things in here that's way too many speculations, way too many moon boy mentality, that you put in something and you're looking for that 100x in a couple of days. So I see where he's coming from, and I think it'll be healthy. It's you know, it's painful, but for the long term, I think it's needed.
Yeah, my first thought when I saw this was, and people in our Discord know, in the BNB Discord know, that we like to speculate on a lot of different node projects and a lot of different DAOs. So when I saw this quote from the Ethereum guy, Vitalik, my thought was crypto winter in the main space is basically crypto Antarctica and DeFi. So when crypto Antarctica comes to DeFi, I think you want to be in the OG project and not the fork. I think it's the forks that I'm in that I'm most scared about. You know, I'm not so worried about Strong Chain or Ohm, but it's these copy and paste forks of Strong Chain and copy and paste forks of Ohm that are way more likely to get wiped out when the crypto winter comes. So that was my first thought when I saw this. And if we are in a crypto winter, we're about to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to that, the first thing I saw whenever I saw this article was the photo that you brought up with Vitalik sitting in the bear costume, and I was thinking, what in the world is going on? So, you know, for him to say that he's kind of looking forward to the bear market to help flush that out, it made me kind of think a little bit and think differently maybe than what I had, because when we take a step back and look at the 50,000 foot view of what's going on, there's so many things going on, and the speed is almost too fast for anybody to keep up with, or any group to keep up with. We talk about things all the time, you know, and every day there's something new popping up. And honestly, the faster things move, the more mistakes that are made, the more opportunities for people to you know, take advantage of others. And so, in a way, I think he's right. Like, hey, maybe things have gotten a little out of control in certain spaces, and for the industry as a whole to be taken a little bit more serious, maybe we need to flush out some of the bad actors. And the only way to really flush people out in some cases is to allow it to drop. And so I don't know, it was just made me think differently. I don't know if I have a take on what he specifically had to say, but it definitely was thought provoking for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think that taking one person's word for something, when it comes to market sentiment is one thing, but I do like some of his ideas, talking about decentralization. So he understands, at least from his high level perspective, kind of what it is people are dealing with here, which is good. He's still in touch. So hopefully that helps with some of his decisions going forward and into the future. And I think, let's see, I think one of the last things that we wanted to talk about is Strong Block. So you talked about it a little bit, Smokey.
I think the OpenSea hack too.
Oh yeah, we want to talk about the OpenSea hack. So what? Let's start with Open. So a lot of like it was going on in the Discord, in our Discord specifically. We threw a bunch of @here and @everyone messages so that we could get people's attention. But there was something that happened with OpenSea. I'm gonna try to pull up an article while you guys talk about it a little bit more. But yeah, something happened with OpenSea, and some NFTs and some wallets were getting drained. And from what I understand, I mean, there were multiple different reports out there, but one of the reports that I read was like $200 million of NFTs were taken. What did you guys hear?
Yeah, it happened so fast, Draco, that it seemed like every single Discord channel, everybody was screaming it at the top of their lungs at the same time. And there was different reports that I heard, and I haven't had an opportunity to follow up to find out what the actual truth behind it was. So a little cloudy on my end.
Yeah, it's just scary because OpenSea, they're supposed to be the gold standard or the closest thing we have to a gold standard for, an NFT type of eBay website. So when they go down, that's going to affect the entire NFT market. I know there's some other NFT sites coming up that are becoming more and more reliable for buying and selling your NFTs. But OpenSea is the top brand. I mean, when you get into NFTs or you're introducing someone to NFTs, the first website you're going to show them is OpenSea. So to see them get hacked, it's very traumatic for the entire space. But I don't know what the cause of it is or what the cause of it was. I just hope that it gets resolved pretty quickly, so something like this doesn't happen again.
So this made it to CNBC, which for crypto world is kind of a big deal, right? And they said down here, so I heard 200 million. So they said that there was a rumor, so I was wrong, and that they said that they confirmed that the hacker has approximately $1.7 million of Ethereum in that wallet for selling stolen NFTs. And all I have to say, so they're saying that it was a phishing attack. So there was a lot of speculation going on as this was happening. We just knew that you wanted to, disconnect your wallets, right? But what I will say is that all this does ultimately is put another black eye on the market. Like, it just puts a black eye on the space itself, right? In cryptocurrency as an asset class. It just, people are going to see this type of news, and we all know that investing in cryptocurrency has its risks, right? But if people that are looking to potentially get into space, all they see are the big negative things that are happening about cryptocurrency, it's just not a good look for the entire space.
Man, I just want to say I got all my NFTs right-clicked, saved as in my folder, so they can't steal it from me, man. I wasn't even worried.
Do you buy that it was a phishing attack, or do you think that's just OpenSea saying, "Oh, it wasn't our fault"?
What I heard
somebody clicked the link.
What I heard is that the wallet that did this, they transferred 1 ETH into it like a month ago, so they knew that there's going to be a migration or going to a different version of OpenSea. So they planned out the attack where when they sent out the phishing email, people were kind of expecting to receive this email from OpenSea. Well, first of all, I don't know who even registers the email with OpenSea, but I think there's people who buy the Ethereum address where you can just use your name instead of the long address and things like that. So it might be an insider thing, it might not be an insider thing. I do know that OpenSea, one of their executives, has been caught front running a lot of these NFTs. He has multiple wallets that he's buying things from. That goes onto the front page of OpenSea like the very next day. So he flips it really easily. So he'll load these NFTs up the next day when it's on the front page and the price pumps a lot, he sells it, and he has multiple wallets doing this. And the thing is, if he has one wallet doing this, he can justify it to say, oh, I just like these NFTs. But he's like multiple wallets trying to hide these transactions. Then it makes you feel like he knows this was shady. He knows it wasn't the right thing to do.
Oh, absolutely. It's greed.
So,
it's like the theme of the night is greed.
Yeah. So a lot of these, the thing is, when you get to decentralized, when you get unregulated markets, you're always going to have bad actors. And that's just the way that things are. But it's also the argument, just because there are bad actors, does that mean there should be more regulation coming in, which in turn defeats the purpose of this whole decentralized thing? And maybe people can be held more accountable for this, but then you will need to know the actual identity. I think NFT is also a little bit harder to move than just crypto themselves. It's not as liquid. I think he probably listed them a little bit at floor price or maybe below floor price to kind of sell it quick. But yeah, I mean, this is this sounds like the person who did it kind of knew what OpenSea was doing, like when they're gonna push this out.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. But yeah, I think overall we can all agree that this is not good for the space. And like even if it's a group of people, a small group that work together to hack this or whatever, it's really selfish for people to act like this, and it's just horrible for the overall space. And I don't know, again, people want to scream regulation, but what will come with that? Are you ready for what could potentially usher in regulation and what it could do to the overall space? And I would say that that's probably not a good thing overall. So we'll have to see.
Smokey was like, "My pirates."
Yes.
I still have my
Oh, I
pirates.
ran to check my pirates. I was so scared about my pirates when I saw that. I was like, wait, what? Yeah.
So who all here listened to the live AMA or re-listened to it after it was posted with Strongblock, and David Moss was on there doing his voice like he was actually doing an audio recorded AMA?
Oh, I listened to it. It was one of the most exciting things I listened to all year in crypto. The Strong Chain AMA, it really got me excited. Even though the market's been going down, that AMA was probably the most positive thing in the news this week. So when Strong Chain comes out, it's going to give people an opportunity to run a validator node who otherwise would probably never run a validator node in their entire life. And I think that's going to be huge for the entire space because a validator node, I mean, owning a validator node could be like owning real estate. It could end up being a lifetime passive income stream, because the way a validator node generates income is through transactions. So every time there's a transaction involving the Strong Chain coin, there's a gas fee, and a portion of that gas fee will go to the validator node. So that's what a lot of the AMA was about, and I saw it as the most positive news of the week.
Yeah, it was impressive. And I've been following Strong for a long time, and I won't get into a whole lot of how I feel about Strong. I think that it's a pretty good project, but it's been a little bit since David Moss spoke to the community, and it was really refreshing to hear him speak again and talk about cryptocurrency in general, and then talk about Strongblock and where it's going and what it's doing. And part of what they talked about was they have some really big announcements that are going to be coming up, hopefully by the end of the month, including Strong Chain being released and more economics and white papers that include all of their tokenomics and how they're going to change a little bit. So just hearing that information is really, really positive for the space and for Strongblock itself. So I'm pretty happy for all that to happen.
It's definitely painful seeing Strong going down. But I was joking around in another chat. I was like, man, all I do is compound, never take a profit. I don't care if it's 10,000, 1,000, or 0. It doesn't matter to me because I'm just compounding, and I'm still compounding. I'm actually not stressed out about this price. I mean, everything's been bleeding, so that's one thing. But I still have a goal where I want to compound to, and I'll get there. And if Strong goes down more, then I guess that's a risk I'm willing to take. But I I'm still bullish on Strong, and we'll see where it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Mr. Maverick?
Hey, I'm probably the only person in this chat right now that doesn't have Strong in their book. So, hey, I will say this though, Strong is the OG of the space, and they did it first, they did it the best, and I think that that's not going to change moving into the future. I think they're taking the right steps, right, and trying to do right by their investors. So, I'm not too worried about it. There may come a time where I believe the same, and it's time to buy in. But I will say this: there's probably no other community that I've run across in the crypto space like Strong. Even though I'm not a part of it, it's pretty incredible what they've built, and the strength is in the community. So, yeah, kudos to everybody that has Strong. I don't care what the price is either. I think it's probably the best project that I've seen since entering crypto.
Yeah, and one other thing to add is Strong has everything you look for in a project. They have a dev team with a lot of experience and a track record from past projects. They have influencers, people with a lot of Twitter followers that you would call influencers that are constantly promoting it, and they have a grassroots following, that will go out and market the coin and promote the coin and the chain as well. So when you have those three things, a crypto winter doesn't really scare me as much with Strong as it does with other DeFi projects.
Yeah, and it to add on to that, it doesn't scare me. It just makes it's unfortunate. You would like to see a project do really really well or hold a specific value, but when the entire market's going down, it's almost impossible to expect that. But yeah, I'm not scared that something like catastrophic is going to happen to a project of that caliber. I just think that other projects are going to start to fail, which is going to take away uh, you know all of the positivity that could have gone to that good project, right? And we've talked about that before, specifically with DAOs, right? So like earlier you talked about Ohm and how Ohm was a really good project in that you're not worried that, these crypto winters or the mega winter is going to affect Ohm, but all of the projects that came behind it that did poorly really put a bad name on DAOs in general, to include Ohm. And I think that's really unfortunate because it was had nothing to do with their project. It had to do with all of these, false people coming out and trying to say that we have this great project, and it wasn't a great project. So I think the fork season, and the node season and the rug season that we've all been accustomed to really did the most damage to a good project, and that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's true. You hate to see the barrage of negative headlines, and that does bring down even the good projects.
Hey,
Absolutely.
I was really looking at Strong at a decent entry point. This was back around the time, which I hate to even bring it up, that Ring had been introduced. And I think around that time, Strong had fallen to its lowest position in, quite some months. It was dropped below 400 for the first time in a long time and created good buying opportunities for people. And it just it surprised me though, like when the Ring debacle happened, everybody flocked back to Strong, it seemed. So I know everybody's worried about it and the bad publicity in the node space, but I also think that the cream rises to the top. And again, once all these defunct projects kind of move away, I do think that it still has a good chance of reigning supreme, and people will enter back into it as a safe alternative.
Yeah, I actually never invested that much money into Ohm, but I kind of remember Ohm had a pretty good grassroots community too, like Strong. So I was kind of surprised to see Ohm go down when all the DAOs started to go down, just because it felt almost like Strong and Ohm were rival communities in 2020 for a while. You'd always see the Ohm people fighting with the Strong people on Twitter,
Yeah.
as if there's not room to invest in both. But it was kind of weird to see Ohm go down when all the other DAOs went down. So hopefully that doesn't happen to Strong. But yeah, from seeing what happened to Ohm, I guess it is possible.
I
Yeah,
think a lot of
absolutely.
people don't realize that the market condition is completely different now than in 2021. And if we can probably talk about that just for a few minutes, because I think a lot of people, for the past couple of months has been bleeding a lot. And maybe people who are holding these coins or even Ethereum or Bitcoin are suffering, and it's just it's a little sad, I guess, for the most part, to just keep seeing these things that you think are good investments, come down, and you say, oh man, it's going to drop lower than 32,000. It bounces to 45. You're, oh, is this the bottom? That was at the bottom. We're going to go back to all-time high. Then now it's coming back down again. So I think that people, if not prepared, I think a lot of people have not gone through something like this, and I don't think any of us has gone through the 2018 where it's like a whole year of continuous bleed. And I gone through it last year with stocks around March, where everything I was holding is like every single day I open my port and every single position is red. And it's just day after day, just look at that. It's painful. So I learned my lesson from that. But I think a lot of people don't understand what the market condition is. I think people are maybe getting discouraged just looking at the short term. So can we talk about a little bit of just how what mindset should we have in terms of investing in crypto, or even just to cheer up during these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things you can do is if you're in projects and you're over leveraged at this point and you're considering selling, I mean, nobody can tell you when to hit the button, right? But it also depends on your investment goal. And I think this brings up a good point for a long-term investor, right? So I've talked to people in the past and said, hey, I'm interested in investing into Bitcoin. And I've heard people say negative things about that. But Bitcoin as an investment vehicle, if that's something you're interested in, if you're looking at it short term, yeah, maybe it would not be a great idea because of how expensive it is and the volatility, right? But one of the quotes that I've heard in the past, and I think it's a really, really important quote, is it was by Michael Saylor. And what he said is that if you look at it at a 4-year time frame, nobody's ever lost money in Bitcoin who's invested over the course of 4 years. Now you can go back and look at the chart yourself. And if you look at it on a 4-year span, people who invest for 4 years or more make money. So, and the gains that they're making are exponential. They're huge compared to the 4% or 6% stock market. So, it's something to consider. If you got to look at where you're at and how long you plan on investing. So the answer to that is, in my opinion, if you're a short-term investor and you need that money right now, then maybe you shouldn't have invested it in the first place, and you need to take care of yourself and your family. Nobody's going to hate you for that, right? You got to make the decisions you got to make. But if you plan on being here in a year or 2 years, well, then maybe you need to hold the line and have some self-discipline and potentially, thinking about holding your bags. Now, obviously, that's not financial advice, but it has to do with how the market works. So this is the type of things that happen in this market. It's volatile. If you're a short-term investor, you have a lot to think about. If you're a long-term investor, just relax and do your best to have some self-control and hold on tight, because it's never going to be easy.
Yeah, and I would also say, look at the headlines we talked about tonight. I mean, look at all these countries getting into crypto. Look at these big companies, YouTube, Spotify, getting into crypto. So, I mean, crypto's not going to die. We know that, or these people would not be getting into crypto. So I wouldn't panic. I don't think it's time to panic. You might have to have some discipline and hold the line. But the headlines say that crypto is here to stay and it's going to eventually go up again.
I saw one thing that from someone another chat. I won't say his name, but he showed a video of his Bitcoin mine, and man, it looked professional. It's like building everything was so neat and so well done. I was like, man, you're like a millionaire here, rich or something. But he said this was in 2017, and when the 2018 crash came, that a lot of the investors got scared and had to unfortunately sell it. So he doesn't own it anymore. But man, like if
Dang.
they saw the long-term vision of that, and if the investors, because I know it's such a huge farm that he probably couldn't have funded it himself. And if it's something that the investors say, hey, we're bullish on Bitcoin long term, so let's maybe we'll even take some loss here, or maybe we'll just shut it down for now. It's not profitable to mine, but we'll still maintain it. I mean, if they survived 2018, they would be absolutely just printing money right now. And the company eventually got that space eventually got bought out by Riot, which is which is huge. So it's I see that, and it's it really amazes me that they've been doing this years and years ago, to see it, to have something so organized back in the day. Another thing also pains me that they weren't able to get through it, and I think a lot of people, there's gonna be a lot. Who knows? There could short term. There could be a lot more pain coming. But if you say, "Hey, I'm just gonna hold this. I believe it," and you're playing with money that you can afford to keep in the market, you don't have to pull it out to pay rent or buy food or anything like that. I think in the long term, it definitely is gonna benefit you.
Yeah, I mean, they always talk about, there's all these cliche terms and things like that, right? But specifically when it comes to bear markets and all of that volatility, fortune favors the bold, people that can hold on through all of this. If you can weather the storm, and I don't think everybody says this, especially like big investors, your Michael Saylors and your individuals that are really invested in these type of assets will tell you that the best time to buy is during uncertainty and fear. When the market's doing bad and there's blood in the streets and everything's red, that's when you make life-changing money. So that's something to consider. Obviously not financial advice, but historically, that's when people make money. So we're already here. We're already feeling the effects of it. How bold are you going to be? Or if you want to sit out on the sidelines, you can move everything into stables, right? So there's a ton of different options you could have, but the people that are going to make the most money on this are the ones that are aggressive and that can hold through the dips.
Yeah, and how many people, when Strong was running into the 1,000 area, or even high 800, 900, how many people say, "Man, if Strong ever came back down to 200, 300, 400, whatever, I'm gonna buy one Strong." I think it's the same people now looking at, "Oh man, I don't want to touch this now." So we always have, it's that psychology game. I think a lot of this investing or even buying or trading is so much psychology, it's so much mental thing. And I think when people say, we're talking about, if Strong drops 200 and people who would have bought it at a way more expensive price, now they don't want to touch it, and then Strong maybe runs back up again, the market conditions well, then they'll be buying at 600, 700. I mean, who knows? It's just, if you have a plan and the plan makes sense to you financially, just carry out and see where it goes.
Yep, I think that's the best advice you can give, is have a plan. I made a Strong node on Sunday, and I'll make another one next Sunday. I make one every single week. That's my goal, and I won't stop doing it, no matter what the price is. If it's $1,000 or $100, on Sunday I'm making a node. So that's my goal, and that's what I'm going to stick to. And if you have a really good plan and it meets your financial goals, then stick to it. Don't let all of this stuff affect what you're doing. Be strong. So yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for coming on. This was a great conversation. Thank you to the crowd and everybody that showed up. We really appreciate all of you coming. We really, appreciate you guys listening to us, and we like coming up here and talking to you. So our shows are going to be coming out on Mondays and Thursdays. So we'll hope to see all of you again on Thursday around 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So have a good night, and stay the course. Don't let all this throw you off course. Stay strong.
Thanks, guys. Great talking to you.
Thanks.
Good
See
night,
you
guys.
Thursday.